showtime. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the ChannelPro 5-Minute Roundup. Look at news, trends, and tips for the SMB channel in 5 minutes or thereabouts. My name is Rich Freeman. I am executive editor of the ChannelPro Network. I am also a co-host of this program. I am joined this week, as I am every week, by your other co-host, Eric Simpson, a business transformation and improvement advisor to MSPs and other IT providers. Eric, how you doing?
Doing well, Rich. It's starting to heat up a little bit this week in SoCal. So I can just, imagine, the heat index over the next couple of months as we continue to experience what some may or may not think is climate change.
You know what? It's heating up here in Seattle as well, except in Seattle, that means it's about 75 degrees here right now. But for us, that's just blazing.
Very well. Yeah. Hard to get a chan.
Well, let's dive into our top story of the week here. And this is actually just a little bit left over from last week. Last week, I was in Dallas with the rest of the ChannelPro team. We were hosting the latest of our SMB forum events there. Actually, the first one we'd done in 15 months with a live in-person audience, in addition to an online audience, which was very nice. Had an opportunity to sit down at that show with Rob Ray, who is the Senior Vice President of Business Development at Datto. And between that and listening to his presentation at the event, it was sort of an interesting chance to kind of catch up with the way they're thinking at Datto right now. The way Rob kind of positioned things with the MSPs in our audience at the beginning of his presentation is something that I've heard from others at Datto. I've actually heard from some other vendors as well, and even outside the IT industry. This idea that we coming out of the pandemic, as we return slowly, but we hope surely back to normal, that we might be in an early phase of what Datto calls the roaring 20s, that we might actually really be heading into not just a recovered economy, but a truly thriving economy as it bounces back from that very serious recession that we went through last year. And Datto is highlighting a few particular opportunities these days with MSPs that kind of factor into its product strategy and market strategy, as you would expect. And, first and foremost, they are talking about security, except they're not saying security, Eric. What they're talking about these days is cyber resilience. And cyber resilience is a term that we've heard others in the industry use. Acronis has been using that term. Carbonite, which owns Webroot and is in turn owned by OpenText these days, has for quite a while now been talking about cyber resilience. And the idea basically is, if you take security technology and combine it with BDR so that you can, prevent an attack, detect an attack, but also recover if a breach happens and data gets lost or encrypted or so on. You combine all those technologies together and you've got a cyber resilience strategy. Datto is now part of the cyber resilience club as well, if you will. And we've heard their chief information security officer using that term over the course of the last 6-8 months. We got more of that from them last week. They talked, of course, about the work from anywhere phenomenon and what that might mean for MSPs. And then another thing that Datto has actually been talking about for quite a while, I mean, going back to before the pandemic, is they were very interested in co-managed IT, where an MSP can work with a somewhat larger organization, large enough to have their own in-house IT organization, and either sort of supplement what that in-house IT group does, or sort of serve as a backup if they need some additional scalability. But that was something that Datto saw increasing going into the pandemic. And then the pandemic only accelerated that trend, because a lot of these mid-sized organizations, suddenly found themselves faced with these remote management tasks that were unfamiliar to them, but very familiar to MSPs. And we've seen a lot of MSPs sign management contracts with larger businesses as a result. That is not played out by any means, according to Datto, and they're actually going to be investing in training programs this year to kind of help their MSP partners understand what that opportunity is, how to communicate, how to sell that kind of a contract successfully to a mid-sized organization so that they don't get scared that you're coming in to replace them, do their job, et cetera. That's something that they're very excited about. So it was kind of interesting to get a chance while we were actually face to face for the first time in a long time, to catch up with what they're thinking at Datto, and see that, as with so many other companies in the industry, security, huge focus area going forward, and the co-managed IT phenomenon continues to roll on, has more headroom for growth.
Yeah, yeah. It was nice to see Rob Ray back out and at them as we've seen in the past, and that's encouraging when we're seeing the interest from not only attendees to get out and go to these really valuable events, but also to have the sponsors willing to send out the big guns to really make their sessions and the event much more engaging and impactful for the attendees. So yeah, and on the cyber resilience front, I think that's just the natural evolution, right? I think new category creation, right? This is where we're moving into now, and we've got a few members in the club, as you say, Rich, and specifically on the co-managed IT opportunity. Yes, this is, and I'll touch on that in my tip of the week segment here, but that has really been supercharged through the journey that MSPs have gone through during the pandemic. The opportunity, we've talked about this on other episodes, where MSPs had not been very successful prior to the pandemic, but when that happened, these mid-size and enterprise level internal IT departments were kind of caught flat-footed, right? They weren't ready to support remote workforces and didn't have the tools, the processes or anything like that opened the door again for MSPs to be able to go back and win that business in some cases where they had tried before and been unsuccessful, but now were welcomed with more open arms, as it were, by these internal IT departments. And we'll talk a little bit about that stickiness moving beyond the pandemic. But I think that's what Datto is seeing that stickiness now, and the change in customer behavior, which I'll also kind of talk a little bit about in my tip of the week, and getting in front of that and helping their partners be prepared to take advantage of that. I think hats off. That's what every MSP wants from their vendor partners, is to help them grow their businesses and learn new ways to apply their tools and services to grow the value of their organizations.
And one other thing that I'll bring up, you remind me as you're talking there, and this came up in my conversation with Rob, but also with other people I interviewed or spoke with in Dallas last week, and it factors into this phenomenon as well. One reason MSPs didn't really have enormous success in the past selling into mid-sized organizations, for co-managed IT or otherwise, is a lot of them were a little intimidated by the prospect of even making that pitch. And one of the things Rob and a number of other people I spoke to last week said is, coming out of the pandemic and realizing the absolutely critical role that they played in keeping so many small and mid-sized businesses operational through that crisis, and knowing that those small and mid-sized businesses view their MSPs as truly essential workers, first responders, there's a kind of self-confidence, almost a swagger in the step of MSPs, right now, who really do understand that they play a vital role in the economy generally and the IT economy specifically. And I think that factors into the willingness of some MSPs to take on that co-managed kind of work. It's like, yeah, I can handle that. And they really do need my services. My services really are valuable. It was kind of nice to hear, actually, that there is a more of a well-deserved kind of self-appreciation among MSPs for the value of the work they do.
And well earned and well-deserved. So MSP Swagger, I'm going to buy that domain name now. Nice. Thanks, Rich, for the tip.
Sorry, folks in our audience, too late. It's already been taken. Eric, let's move on to your tip of the week. And as you hinted at, co-managed IT is going to be a part of it, but I think you're thinking bigger than that.
I am thinking a little bit bigger. And the tip of the week here is to make sure that channel pros and MSPs evolve their businesses for how the world has changed. And I've been doing some research recently, as we were chatting before showtime, Rich, on building some new sessions around how MSPs can take advantage of the changing um, the changing thinking of business owners that are coming out of the pandemic. They've experienced this kind of detrimental event, and have had to make a lot of rapid changes in order to remain in good operating condition. And some of those decisions have included hiring more services from existing MSPs, or bringing MSPs in when they didn't have that type of support, specifically in situations like the co-managed IT opportunity that we've been talking about. But more than that, to invest more to rapidly increase the security level and posture of their organizations, to increase their cyber resilience, as it were, to support more distributed workforces, the remote workforces. And so through that, my analysis of a lot of different data points from very renowned analysts leads me to conclude that, and based on their statistics and their proof points as well, that a lot of those decisions have transformed the strategic nature of how these business owners see IT. As a matter of fact, I'll give you a couple of stats here. This is from McKinsey and Company. The largest changes that businesses have had to make through the pandemic are most likely to stick in the long term. And one that I'll pull out, which will be of interest to channel pros and MSPs, is the increase in remote working and or collaboration. 54% of business owners surveyed said that they would increase that. So we're seeing that now, Rich, right? We're seeing more companies even announcing that they're allowing their staff to work a couple of days from home, or even adopting or maintaining more permanent remote workforces. So from the tip today, adjusting your perspective to maybe lead with those kinds of conversations when you're promoting your services to other prospects, and maybe qualifying for those specific questions, right? The increase in collaboration, communication, teleconferencing services. I see statistics that are saying that obviously has been on the rise and will likely continue, right? As these business owners decide to maintain these remote workforces. One more stat I'll throw at you, Rich. The mindsets of technology's strategic importance by these business owners has also changed. In fact, according to McKinsey in the same report, 38% of the business owners polled responded that they will be investing more in technology to make it a competitive advantage. And I talk a lot in my sessions about, the technology strategic clients and the technology aware clients or dependent clients. So now 38% of these respondents are saying that they are now viewing their investments in technology from a more strategic perspective. So channel pros and MSPs out there, up your game and talk about the strategic importance. Really lead with that and qualify for the remote workforce collaboration. I have other statistics that talk about, moving more toward the cloud, the acceleration to the cloud, and security as well. So the pandemic has really accelerated this digital transformation by 5 times or more, according to some other studies that I've been researching, Rich.
And it really does probably make sense to showcase that in your service offerings and your sales pitches. I mean, even if what you are offering or delivering to customers isn't all that different from what you were doing before, really sort of highlighting for customers that you have a bundle, a package of services that is ideal for the hybrid business. With employees, in the office and at home, and you are leading edge on cloud, and you have a complete cloud offering, and you have a security offering that addresses the needs of an organization with office space, and really sort of letting folks know and underscoring that you are up to speed with that whole new set of technology requirements that SMBs have been dealing with for the last 12, 15 months or so, I think just if nothing else from a sales and marketing perspective, really does make a lot of sense. And then what, the other point you were making, I think is key too, and it aligns with conversations in the industry for the last several years, this idea that if your model is a transactional one, I'm going to sell you this device, I'm going to sell you this project, you're probably going to be at a disadvantage from a longer term perspective. You really, it's a cliche, I know, the trusted advisor thing, but you really do want to be the strategic IT consultant who is having strategic business technology conversations with the customer. And you want to be that first phone call that a business owner or a CEO places to understand how technology can help address a challenge or an opportunity. And everything you were just saying there in terms of these trend lines and statistics underscores that even more so than before, you want to be capable of having that kind of strategic conversation with your clients.
Absolutely. Be bold, be confident, use that to energize your conversations, and in the SMB and in the mid-market and the enterprise as well, the co-managed IT, you're equipped to deliver these services. The mid-market and the enterprise are the folks that are really looking more towards this remote workforce, sustainability over time and maybe increasing that. So, you're poised to really take advantage of these new changing mindsets of these business owners and these internal IT leaders.
Last point before we move on, and this is something actually that Rob Ray said when I was speaking with him last week, those larger businesses, they tend to value IT a little bit more than the smaller ones. They have bigger budgets and they pay their bills on time, people. So there are some advantages to moving into those accounts. But that leaves us with time for just one more story. And Eric, I consider this kind of the latest installment in sort of a series we've been doing, because really over the course of the last 15 months or so, every now and again, we brought up some story illustrating just how kind of crazy people are going in this disrupted world that we've been in, and we're out of lockdown now, but still things aren't exactly how they were before. So just a few weeks ago, we were talking about a guy who I think decided out of the blue he was going to walk from Los Angeles to Sacramento or something like that. There was the guy some months ago who ran a marathon in his tiny little apartment, like laps around his bed. We got a new one, a Chicago bus driver who was looking for a way to relieve stress a year ago when lockdowns were in effect, jumped into Lake Michigan for the 365th straight day last Saturday. As far as I know, he's still doing this, but for one solid year, once a day, he's been jumping into Lake Michigan. It was one of these things, I guess, that seemed like a good idea at the time. So he did it a second day, and now he's gone a whole year. I wonder how long he intends to keep this going.
I don't know, Rich, but whatever keeps you sane, brother.
If it works, it's okay. And apparently it worked for a solid year here. Well, folks, that is all the time we've got this week for you on the 5-Minute Roundup. We thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back again next week with another episode for you. We are both a video and a podcast these days. So if you're watching the video, hey, why not become a subscriber to the podcast? We are available Spotify, Google, Apple, everywhere you get your podcasts. Go ahead and subscribe there. If you can take an extra second and give us that 5-star rating, you'll make it a little bit easier for your peers to find us too. If you're listening to the podcast right now, well, hey, check us out on YouTube. We are on the ChannelPro Network channel there. You can subscribe to that too. If you click the little bell icon, you'll actually get notifications when the new episodes go up. To read more about my recent coverage of Datto, to get all sorts of great business growth advice, news, insights, etc. for your company, visit channelpronetwork.com every day, because there is awesome new content going up for you there every day. To learn more about Eric and the work he does with his clients, please visit ericksimpson.com. That is ERICK Simpson.com. Once again, we thank you for joining us. We're going to see you again next week on the next episode of the 5-Minute Roundup. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the rest of your week. Eric and I are enjoying the rest of your week already.